Hi everyone, welcome to this video on getting started with the slider component of Syncfusion in a Blazor server application. In this video, I will explain how to create a Blazor server application and add the Syncfusion Blazor package. Then I will show you how to add the Syncfusion Blazor slider component to the Blazor server application. After creating the slider, I will explain how to enable a tooltip and show the slider types. I will also explain how to set ticks, value limits, and value formatting. To explore the features available in slider component, visit our website link provided in the above YouTube card. You can create a Blazor application using either Visual Studio 2019 or Visual Studio Code. In this video, I will create a server-side Blazor application using Visual Studio 2019. I have installed the .NET Core SDK 3.12. To follow along with this video, one should have a basic understanding of C#, HTML and CSS. You can also watch a detailed video on Blazor and Syncfusion controls titled Create a Blazor server app and add Syncfusion Blazor components, which I have shared in the YouTube card. Now, let me create a Blazor project first. I select the Blazor app template, provide the project name, My Blazor Server App, and click Create. Here, the Blazor Server app was selected by default, and I proceed by clicking the Create button. Now, Visual Studio has generated a Blazor Server application. To use Syncfusion Blazor components, I need to install the Syncfusion Blazor NuGet package in my application. To do that, I open the NuGet package manager by right-clicking the project file and selecting Manage NuGet packages. Under the Browse tab, I search for the Syncfusion Blazor package. I select it and click the Install button. The installation is completed now. When you check the dependencies folder and the packages folder, and you will find the Syncfusion Blazor package added to this application. Next, the Syncfusion Blazor service must be registered in the services container. For that, I open the startup.cs file and use the Syncfusion Blazor namespace. Within the configure services method, I make a call to the add Syncfusion Blazor method. This makes Syncfusion Blazor services available within the application. Next, I must register a valid Syncfusion license key. To do so, in the configure method, I call the Syncfusion license provider static method register license. You also need to pass your Syncfusion license key as a string parameter in the register license method. I have done this off screen. Within the pages folder, open the host.cs HTML file. Within the head tag, add the required CSS file to render the Syncfusion Blazor components. In this example, I refer the CSS file from the installed Syncfusion Blazor package. Now, let me add the Syncfusion Blazor slider to the index component page. To do so, I use the Syncfusion Blazor inputs namespace. Adding this namespace here allows me to use the slider component markup. I can also import this namespace in the imports.razor page to make it available to all the Razor components within this application. I remove the existing code and type a SF slider tag and set the value property to 40. I add the width property and set 600px. I save the file and run the application. You can see the slider with the provided width and value. To show the value on hovering or dragging a slider handle, I need to use the slider tooltip. To add a tooltip within the SF slider tag, I add the slider tooltip data tag and set the isVisible property to true for the tooltip to be visible. Then I add the show on property and I choose any values from always, auto, focus or hover. I set the value to always so that the tooltip will be shown on hovering as well as dragging the single handle. Let me add the placement property and set the value to after or before. If I set the value to after, the tooltip will be positioned below the slider bar on hovering or dragging. I save the file and run the application. You can see the slider with the slider handle. When I click or drag the slider handle, the tooltip is seen. When I focus out the slider, the tooltip is still visible. This is because the show on property is set with the value always. Next, let's see the three types of sliders. Default, we have already seen. Now, I will show you the other two types, min range and range. In the index component page, I copy and paste the existing SF slider tag code. In this SF slider tag, I add the property type and set the value to min range. Now I copy this SF slider tag code and paste it. In this SF slider tag, I change the property type as range. Now I save the file and run the application. Now you can see the three sliders. The first type is default and the second is min range. Both the default and min range sliders have the same behavior when selecting a single value. In the min range slider, notice a shadow present from the start value to the current handle position, but the range slider contains two handles to select a range of values and a shadow is in between those two handles. I can set the range value at initial load for the range slider. To achieve it, within the code directive, I add a public property of type int array and name it as range value. I assign an array object with two values 30 and 70. In the range type slider, SF slider tag, I set its value property with this range value property. I save the file and run the application. As you can see, the range slider is selected with the range of 30 to 70 at initial load. Now, let me show you how to add ticks to a slider to easily identify the current value. In the index component, I remove the second and third slider codes for clarity. In the SF slider tag, I add the slider ticks data tag. I add the placement property and I can set the value to after, before, both and none. Here I set its value to after and the major tick values will be positioned below the slider bar. I then add the property large step and assign the value 20 and a major tick will be shown with its value in the label for multiples of 20. I also set the small step property and set its value to 10 so that ticks will be shown in multiples of 10. By default, the minor ticks will not be shown in the slider bar. To show it, I add the show small ticks property and set its value to true. Now I save the file and run the application. I hover over the slide bar. You can see the major and minor ticks in multiples of 20 and 10 respectively. When I move the slider handle, you can see the values increment or decrement by 1. To customize it, in the SF slider tag, I add the step property and set the value to 10 with values changing in multiples of 10. Let me save this and run the application. Now, when I move the slider handle, the value changes in multiples of 10. I can also set value limits for the slider. To do so, in the SF slider tag, I add the min property and assign the value 0 and add the max property and assign the value 200. Now I save the file and run the application. The slider bar contains values from 0 to 200. I can format these major tick values and tooltip values as numeric, percentage, currency, and many more. To achieve this, in the slider tooltip data tag, I add the format property and set the value C2 to show the currency pattern in a tooltip. In the slider ticks data tag, I add the format value and assign C2 to show the formatted value in major ticks. I save the file and run the application. You can see the slider bar with the currency value in major ticks and currency pattern in the tooltip. I can also change the default horizontal orientation of the slider to vertical. To do so, in the SF slider tag, I add the orientation property and assign the value vertical. I need to set the height of the slider since I have changed the orientation. To do so, I add the HTML attributes property and assign the value attributes. In the code directive, I declare a variable of type dictionary, type of string, object, named, attributes. I assign a new dictionary object and within it, I add the style attribute with height property. I save the file and run the application. You can see the slider in vertical orientation. If you need more information about the Syncfusion Blazor Slider component, refer to our online documentation. A link is provided in the description of this video. Finally, let me summarize the main points. I have explained the steps to create a Blazor application and add the Syncfusion Blazor package. Then I showed you how to add the Syncfusion Blazor Slider component to the Blazor server application. Finally, I explained how to enable tooltip and types of slider. I also explained how to set ticks, value limits, and format values. You can download this working example from the GitHub link in the video description below. You can also see about getting a free license key to use our Blazor products if you are eligible for our community license. If you found this video useful, click the like button and subscribe to our channel to get notifications about new videos. Thanks for watching.